Adding a vignette is a great way to draw attention to the subject of the photo. In this image, we have two musicians, and I would like to guide the viewer's attention to a focal point, the guitarist, who is not in the center of the image. Also, I would like to bring less attention to the second person on the left side because he is distracting from the focal point. Before we start adjusting the image, I will convert the layer into a smart object so that we can work non-destructively. Right-click on the layer and select Convert to Smart Object. A smart object is basically a shell that protects your layer. You can apply filters, adjustments, and distortions and edit them or remove them entirely at any time. In other words, smart objects allow you to make your adjustments editable. Then you can go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter. The Camera Raw Filter allows you to apply tonal and color adjustments. You can then click on the Radio Filter icon, which allows you to adjust certain parts of a photo in a circular shape. And this is the main tool that we will use to create a custom vignette, which will draw the viewer's attention to the guitarist. On the right-hand side, you will see the sliders that control various aspects of the photo. Keep in mind that these are not global adjustments. They will only affect the radial gradient that we create. To make sure that we're all looking at the same thing, click on the flyout menu and select Reset Local Correction Settings. There are two ways of creating a radial gradient. First, you can double-click anywhere on the photo. This will create a radial gradient that fills the entire image. I'll reduce the exposure to darken the image and so that you can see the effect that it creates. If your darkening effect is in the center, then make sure that outside is selected. And if you don't see the overlay, make sure that you have overlay checked. As you can see, this creates a vignette, but we can take it much further than this. I'll delete the radial gradient by right-clicking on the pin and selecting Delete. The second way of creating a radial gradient is by clicking and dragging directly over the image. The point where you click on will become the center of the gradient. So click on the center of his body and drag out to make the gradient larger. You can reposition the gradient by clicking and dragging on it, and you can adjust the shape by dragging any of the 4 transformation handles. You can rotate the gradient by hovering your cursor outside of the transformation handles and clicking and dragging when you see the double-sided curve arrow. Fine-tune the radial gradient so that it covers the guitarist. Then use the feather slider to control the sharpness of the edge of the gradient. And don't make the edge too sharp. A setting of 0 will be way too sharp for this. I think that a feather of about 20 will work in this case. Just make sure that you have a soft edge. I'll increase the exposure. The background is a little too dark right now. One of the advantages of creating vignettes with the radial gradient is that you can include multiple effects in your vignette to help add more attention to the focal point. For example, you could add negative clarity to remove midtone contrast in the background, which reduces detail. The less detail something has, the less attention it attracts. You could also blur the contents of the vignette to reduce detail. To apply a blur, drag the sharpness slider to the left. And notice how the background becomes blurry and it gives more attention to the guitarist. You can also try reducing saturation to help the guitarist stand out more. In this case, cooling the image will also help because the guitarist has warm colors. Drag the temperature slider to the left to make it blue, which is opposite of the warm yellow on the guitarist. And that will help create contrast and bring more attention to the focal point. To further draw the viewer's attention, we can create a second radial gradient that only will affect the guitarist. Right-click on the radial gradients pin and select Duplicate. Now we have an identical copy of the original radial gradient. Then select Inside so that the adjustments affect the inside of the radial gradient instead of the outside, and click and drag on the corner handles to make the gradient smaller. Make sure that the gradient only affects the guitarist. Reshape it and make the gradient tall so that it creates the illusion of a spotlight. Reset the sliders. Then apply the opposite effects that you applied in the first radial gradient to create contrast and attract more attention to the guitarist. Start by increasing the exposure to make him brighter, which will attract the viewer's attention. Then warm him up by dragging the temperature slider to the right, which will create contrast with the cool background. Increase clarity to add contrast in the midtones and make the guitarist pop, and add saturation to make the colors more vibrant so that they stand out, and increase sharpness to bring more detail into the guitarist. Keep in mind that in your image, you may only need one or a combination of any of these adjustments on your vignette. Then press OK when you're done. Notice that with these simple adjustments, we were able to bring a lot more attention to the guitarist. If you click on this eye icon next to the camera raw filter, you can see the original image, and I'll click on the empty space to bring back the adjustments, and you can see the results. As you can see, these adjustments are not permanent. You can edit them at any time by double-clicking on the Camera Raw filter label, which will bring up Camera Raw, and you can make any adjustments that you like.